Captain James Reed stood at the viewing platform of the Galactic Council's main chamber, his tall frame stiff with tension. The vast, dome-shaped room buzzed with angry voices. 6 massive seats, each designed for a different alien species, formed a half-circle at the front. All 6 representatives glared at the human standing alone in the center. Reed rubbed his tired eyes. 3 days without sleep had left dark circles under them. His normally neat brown hair was messy, and his blue council uniform was wrinkled. He had been fighting for humanity nonstop since the news broke. The evidence is clear, boomed Speaker Tor of the Bright Sun Empire. His golden scales gleamed under the chamber lights. A human colony ship destroyed the sacred monument of eternal memory. This is not just property damage. It is a direct attack on our shared history. Reed stepped forward. Speaker Tor, we admit the damage happened, but it was an accident. The ship's navigation system failed. We offer to rebuild. Silence. The word echoed through the chamber. Tor's tail slammed against his seat. Humans always have excuses, always accidents. Your kind is too dangerous to share the stars with. Ambassador Drell of the Crescent Empire nodded, her 4 eyes blinking in sequence. I agree. First, it was accidental weapons testing near our borders. Then accidental mining in protected zones. Now this. There are no more accidents to forgive. Reed felt his heart sink. The Crescent Empire had been humanity's strongest ally until recently. Something had changed, but he couldn't figure out what. One by one, each empire's representative voted. Reed watched in growing horror as the glowing display showed 6 votes against humanity. Unanimous. The Council has decided, Speaker Tor announced. All human ships will return to Earth space immediately. All trade with human worlds will stop. All human diplomats will leave our territories. Earth is now under quarantine until further notice. Reed couldn't believe what he was hearing. This will destroy us. Our outer colonies depend on trade. Millions will starve. You should have thought of that before attacking our heritage, said Ambassador Krell of the Stone Reach Collective, his rocky face showing no emotion. Reed tried one last appeal. At least give us time to arrange supply lines between our own worlds. Speaker Tor raised his clawed hand. You have 14 standard days. After that, any human ship outside Earth's solar system will be considered hostile. The meeting ended. Reed stood frozen as the chamber emptied. Only when a human aide touched his arm did he move. Captain Reed, the young woman whispered, the emergency channel from Earth Command is active. Admiral Jones wants to speak with you now. Reed's private office in the human embassy was small but comfortable. Now it felt like a prison cell. Admiral Jones' hologram flickered with static. The Council was already limiting Earth's communication bandwidth. This is a disaster, Reed, Jones said. Her face looked older than when he'd seen her last month. Half our colonies can't survive without imports. I know, Admiral. Something isn't right. The Council never acts this quickly or this united. And the Crescent Empire turning against us. After 20 years of alliance. Jones nodded. We think so too. Intelligence suggests the monument incident might have been staged. Reed leaned forward. Stage? By whom? We don't know yet, but we need you back on Earth. The President is forming a crisis team. Your experience with the Council will be valuable. Reed paced the small room. Admiral, if I leave now, we lose our only eyes and ears at the Council. Let me stay. I can investigate what really happened. Jones shook her head. Too risky. The quarantine is serious. We're getting reports of human ships being turned away from ports already, some stuck in deep space with low supplies. We need all hands at home. With respect, Admiral, home is where I can do the most good. And right now, that's here. These are direct orders, Captain. Return to Earth immediately. That's final. The hologram disappeared. Reed sat heavily in his chair. Direct orders. In 20 years of service, he had never disobeyed a command. But he had also never faced the possible extinction of his species. Later that night, Reed slipped through the lower levels of the council station. Most human staff were already packing to leave, but Reed had other plans. He entered a dimly lit bar called the Neutral Zone, one of the few places where different species mixed freely. He spotted his contact at a corner table. "Max," Reed said, sitting down across from a weathered-looking man with a scar running down his left cheek. Max nodded. "Heard the news. Tough break for Earth. I need information. The monument incident. Something's not right." Max took a slow sip of his drink. Not just not right. It was a setup. "My sources say Crescent Empire ships were in the area before your colony ship arrived. They left right after the explosion. Why would they do this? The Crescents have been our allies. Power shifts, new leaders, old hatreds." Max shrugged. "But here's what you really need to know. There's a meeting happening tonight. High-level officials from all 6 empires. Very secret, very unusual." Reed felt a chill. "Where?" "Maintenance sector, Block D7. But you'll never get in. Place will be locked down tight." Reed slid a credit chip across the table. "I'm not going home, Max. Not until I know what's happening. Can you get me access codes?" Max's eyebrows rose. "Disobeying orders, Captain. That's not like you. Neither is abandoning humanity when we need answers." Max studied Reed's face, then pocketed the chip. "Give me an hour. But Reed, if you're caught." "I know. I'll be executed as a spy." Reed stood up. "Sometimes we have to risk everything for what's right." The maintenance tunnels were narrow and poorly lit. Reed's stolen maintenance uniform was too tight across the shoulders, but it had gotten him this far. He checked the small scanner Max had given him. No guards ahead. He reached Block D7 and found the meeting room. Instead of trying the door, he accessed a ventilation panel nearby. It was a tight fit, but Reed managed to squeeze through. From the vent above the room, Reed could see and hear everything. 6 aliens, one from each empire, sat around a table. None were the official representatives he knew from the council. "The human quarantine is proceeding as planned," said the Crescent Empire official. "Phase 1 is complete." "Excellent," replied the Bright Sun representative. "How soon can we begin Phase 2? "The weapon will be ready within a standard month," said the Stone Reach scientist. "It targets human genetic markers specifically. No other species will be harmed." Reed felt sick. This wasn't about a monument. It was genocide. He carefully took out a small device and began recording the meeting. This was the evidence Earth needed. If he could get it back home, the other species in the galaxy might intervene. As Reed shifted position, his elbow hit the metal vent with a soft clang. 6 pairs of alien eyes looked up. "Security breach," shouted the Bright Sun official. Reed knew he had seconds. He grabbed the recording device and began crawling backward through the vent. Alarms blared throughout the station. His heart pounded as he reached the exit and dropped back into the maintenance tunnel. He had the evidence, but now he was a fugitive with nowhere to go in a station rapidly filling with security forces. Every empire had closed their doors to humanity, and Reed had just made himself the most wanted human in the galaxy. But he had made his choice. Against all odds, he would fight for his people. The path ahead was dangerous and uncertain, but turning back was no longer an option. Alarms blared throughout the station as Reed ran through the dimly lit maintenance tunnels. The recording device felt heavy in his pocket. It carried proof of the planned genocide against humanity, but it would mean nothing if he couldn't escape. "All security units, locate and detain the human spy," a mechanical voice announced over the station speakers. "Repeat, human spy in maintenance section." Reed ducked into a narrow pike junction as a patrol of Bright Sun guards rushed past, their scaled bodies reflecting the emergency lights. His heart pounded so loud he feared they might hear it. When the coast was clear, Reed pulled out his communicator. "Max, they're onto me. Need extraction, now." Already working on it. Max's voice crackled. Get to lower docking bay 12. There's a waste disposal ship leaving in 10 minutes. The pilot owes me a favor. Copy that. Reed moved carefully through the tunnels, using his knowledge of the station's layout to avoid main corridors. Twice he had to hide as security teams passed by. The lower levels were less guarded, but time was running out. He reached docking bay 12 and spotted the waste ship, an ugly, box-shaped vessel with rust-colored panels. A short, stocky alien with tough green skin was doing final checks outside. You Max's friend. The alien grunted when Reed approached. Reed nodded. He said you could help me leave. Hemph. Hide in waste container 3. Don't touch anything glowing. The alien jerked a thumb toward a large metal bin. Max and Aya are even after this. Reed climbed into the foul-smelling container and pulled the lid down. Minutes later, he felt the container being loaded onto the ship. Then came the rumble of engines. He had escaped the station, but where could he go now? Every empire had closed their doors to humanity. 3 days later, Reed sat in a dingy bar on the asteroid mining outpost known as Rust Bucket. The place was filled with the worst sort of space travelers, smugglers, pirates, and outcasts from every species. Perfect for a human fugitive. Reed nursed a cheap drink, his once neat uniform now disguised under a dirty jacket. His face was covered with 3 days of stubble, and he had smeared engine grease on his cheeks to change his appearance. Looking rough, Captain, said a familiar voice. Reed's hand moved to his hidden blaster as Max slid into the seat across from him. Relax, Max said. If I wanted to turn you in, I would have done it already. The reward for your capture is pretty tempting. Then why are you here? Max grinned, revealing a chipped tooth. Let's just say I'm not a fan of genocide. Besides, I've got someone you should meet. Reed followed Max through the crowded bar and into a back room. A slender alien with pale blue skin and 4 eyes waited there. Reed recognized her species immediately. She was from the Crescent Empire. He tensed, ready to run, but Max put a hand on his shoulder. Easy. This is Lynn. She's a friend. Lynn studied Reed with all 4 eyes. So this is the human who dared to spy on the High Council's secret meeting. Brave or foolish, I'm not sure which. Why should I trust you? Reed asked coldly. Your people voted to quarantine mine. Now I learn they're planning to kill us all. Not my people, Lynn corrected. My government. There's a difference. She pulled back her sleeve to reveal a branded mark on her wrist. I was a senior scientist in the Biological Research Division until I spoke out against our new leadership. This mark means I'm exiled, a traitor to the Empire. Reed eased slightly. What new leadership? 6 months ago, a military faction took control of our government, Lynn explained. Similar power shifts happened in all 6 empires around the same time. 2 coordinated to be coincidence. A galaxy-wide coup, Reed muttered. But why target humans specifically? Fear, Lynn said simply. Humans adapt faster than any species we've encountered. You learn, you change, you grow. In just 100 years, you went from primitive planet-bound creatures to having colonies across multiple systems. The new leaders see you as the biggest threat to their power. Max leaned forward. Show her the recording, Reed. Reed hesitated, then pulled out the device. The holographic display showed the 6 officials discussing the weapon that would target human genetic markers. Lynn's 4 eyes widened. That's Admiral Vox of our Military Science Division. And the others, all high-ranking officials from each empire. She pointed to a diagram visible in the background. That weapon design. I was working on parts of it before I realized its purpose. Can it really target humans specifically? Reed asked. Lynn nodded grimly. Theoretically, yes. A virus that attacks DNA sequences unique to humans. It would spread rapidly and be undetectable until too late. Reed slammed his fist on the table. I need to get this information back to Earth. They need to prepare. The quarantine is too tight, Max said. All ships are being checked. They'd catch you before you made it halfway home. Then what can we do? Reed demanded. Lynn's face grew determined. We can stop the weapon. I know where they're building it. The Edge worlds were a cluster of planets and moons at the border of explored space. Not claimed by any empire, they were home to independent colonies, research outposts, and people who wanted to be left alone. Reed, Max, and Lynn stood on a ridge overlooking a large facility built into the side of a mountain. Their small ship was hidden in a nearby valley. The Joint Research Station, Lynn said, officially listed as an agricultural research center, actually the primary development site for the anti-human weapon. Reed studied the facility through binoculars. Heavy security, guard towers, sensor arrays, patrol drones. Getting in won't be easy, Max added, checking his blaster. But I brought some toys that might help. He opened a case to reveal specialized equipment, sensor jammers, disguise kits, and cutting tools. Lynn pointed to a small building away from the main facility. That's the entrance to the ventilation system. If we can reach it, we can access the central labs. Reed nodded. What's the plan once we're inside? I need to reach the main database, Lynn said. If I can access it, I can not only get proof of who's behind this, but also the complete weapon schematics. With those, Earth scientists might develop a defense. Or we could just blow the place up, Max suggested. Reed shook his head. No, there might be innocent researchers inside who don't know what they're really working on. Besides, destruction won't stop them. They'd just rebuild somewhere else. We need the information. As night fell, they moved toward the facility. Using the sensor jammers, they created a blind spot in the security system. Max disabled the locks on the ventilation building, and they slipped inside. The tunnels were narrow and dusty. Reed led the way, following Lynn's directions through the maze-like system. Finally, they reached a grate overlooking a large laboratory. Scientists of various species worked at stations around the room. In the center, sealed in a transparent containment field, was a small vial of dark liquid. Is that it? Reed whispered. The weapon? Lynn's face paled. Yes, and it's further along than I thought. That's a completed prototype. Then we don't have much time, Reed said. The main database. Through that door, across the hall. They waited until the lab cleared for a shift change, then dropped down from the vent. Reed moved to the door and peered out. The hallway was empty. Now, he whispered. They rushed across to the database room. Lynn immediately went to work on the terminal while Reed and Max stood guard. I'm in, Lynn said after several tense minutes. Downloading everything now. Reed kept watch at the door. Hurry, we don't know when. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. We've been detected, Max shouted. Lynn frantically worked the controls. Almost done. Just a few more seconds. Heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway. Reed raised his blaster. Whatever happens, that data needs to reach Earth. As the first security guards appeared at the end of the hall, Reed stepped out, weapon ready. He was no longer just a captain or a diplomat. He was an outcast fighting for the survival of his entire species. And he would not fail. Blaster fire sizzled past Reed's head as he ducked back into the database room. Security forces were closing in from both ends of the hallway. Lynn, status. He shouted over the alarms. Download complete, she answered, pulling a small data crystal from the terminal. But we're trapped in here. Max fired several shots down the hallway, forcing the guards to take cover. Any bright ideas, Captain? I don't fancy dying in a research lab. Reed scanned the room quickly. His eyes landed on the ceiling panels. There. He pointed upward. Maintenance access. Same design as the council station. Max boosted Lynn up first. She pushed aside a panel and climbed through. Reed followed, then reached down to help Max. Just as Max grabbed his hand, A blaster bolt hit the smuggler in the shoulder. Max. Reed pulled him up with all his strength as security forces burst into the room below. The three fugitives crawled through the tight space above the ceiling. Max's breathing was labored, his face pale with pain. "Left here," Lynn whispered. "This should lead to the outer section." They emerged in a storage area near the facility's outer wall. Reed checked Max's wound. The blaster had burned through his jacket and left an ugly charred mark on his shoulder. "Can you move?" Reed asked. Max nodded grimly. "Been hit worse. Let's go." Lynn applied a quick emergency seal from a first aid kit she found on a shelf. "This will help for now, but we need to get him proper treatment soon." Security alarms still blared throughout the facility. Reed peered out a small window. Guards everywhere. "We'll never make it back the way we came." "What about that?" Max pointed weakly to a small supply shuttle docked at a loading bay. Reed nodded. "Perfect. Lynn, can you fly it?" "Basic piloting was required learning in the Science Academy," she confirmed. They waited until the guards moved to another section, then made a dash for the shuttle. Reed helped Max inside while Lynn went straight for the controls. "No key codes," she said with relief. "They leave these unlocked inside the secure perimeter." The shuttle's engines hummed to life. As they lifted off, the facility's defense systems activated. Turrets swiveled toward them. "Hang on," Lynn shouted, pushing the small craft to maximum acceleration. The shuttle shuddered as energy blasts grazed its hull. Reed held on to Max, who was drifting in and out of consciousness. "Stay with us," he urged. They cleared the facility's range, and Lynn set course for the deepest part of the Edgeworlds. "We did it," she said, her 4 eyes blinking with relief. "And I have the data. Everything about the weapon. And more." Reed looked up. "More." Lynn nodded. "The files contained communications. The conspiracy goes beyond just the weapon. They've been planning this takeover for years. And Reed, there are humans involved." 3 days later, Max was recovering in a hidden medical clinic run by an old doctor who asked no questions. The clinic was located on a tiny moon at the farthest edge of inhabited space. Reed paced the small waiting room while Lynn worked with the data crystal on a secure terminal. "This is worse than we thought," she said, gesturing for Reed to look at the screen. "The weapon is only part of their plan. They intend to use the chaos of humanity's extinction to consolidate power permanently." Reed studied the documents. "And these humans, who are they?" Lynn brought up a file. High-ranking officials in Earth's government and military. They'd been promised safety for themselves and selected others in exchange for helping implement the quarantine from the inside. Reed's face hardened as he recognized one name in particular. "Admiral Black, my direct superior." The doctor entered the room, wiping his hands on a towel. "Your friend will live. The wound was clean, and I've accelerated the healing. He'll need rest, though." Reed thanked the doctor, then returned to the terminal. "We need to get this information to Earth. The right people need to see it. Even if we could break through the quarantine." Lynn said, "How would you know who to trust?" Before Reed could answer, the clinic's alert system activated. A ship was approaching. Reed looked at the scanner. "Military design. How did they find us?" Lynn checked the data logs. The shuttle must have had a hidden tracker. "Get Max ready to move," Reed ordered, grabbing his blaster. "I'll hold them off." He positioned himself at the clinic's entrance, ready for a fight. But when the ship landed and its ramp lowered, a single figure walked out, a human woman in an Earth military uniform. "Captain Reed," she called. "I'm Commander Wilson. I've been looking for you." Reed kept his blaster raised. "How did you find me? And why should I trust you?" Wilson stopped at a safe distance. "Admiral Jones sent me. She suspected something was wrong when Admiral Black ordered your arrest for treason. I've been tracking you since you left Council space." "Admiral Jones." Reed remembered his last conversation with his former commander. She had ordered him home, but perhaps she had her reasons. "She believes you," Wilson continued, "and she wants to help. But we need to move quickly. Black knows I'm here." Reed considered his options. If this was a trap, they were already caught. If not, this might be their one chance to get the information to Earth. "Wait here," he said, then went back inside to consult with Lynn. "It could be a trick," Lynn warned. "But if it's not?" Reed looked toward the room where Max was recovering. "We can't stay here anyway. And we need allies." Lynn nodded slowly. "I sense no deception from her, but I've been wrong before." Reed made his decision. He helped Max to his feet, while Lynn gathered their equipment and the precious data crystal. When they emerged from the clinic, Wilson was still waiting. Her eyes widened at the sight of Lynn. "A Crescent scientist. You're working with the enemy." "She's not the enemy," Reed said firmly. "She's risked everything to help us. The real enemy includes people on both sides." Wilson hesitated, then nodded. "Admiral Jones said you might have unexpected allies. Come on, we need to go. My ship has a stealth system that should get us past the quarantine patrols." As they boarded Wilson's ship, Reed felt a glimmer of hope for the first time since this ordeal began. They had the evidence. They had a way back to Earth. Maybe they could still save humanity. The ship took off, vanishing into the stars. Below, the clinic's doctor watched them leave, then activated a hidden communicator. "They're on their way," he said. "Yes, all of them. The human captain, the Crescent scientist, and the smuggler, plus a new one, military, female." He listened for a moment, then nodded. "Understood, Admiral Black. I'll expect payment as agreed." Wilson's ship slipped through space, its stealth systems making it nearly invisible to sensors. In the small command center, Reed watched as Lynn and Wilson discussed the route back to Earth. Max, still weak but improving, sat beside Reed. "You trust this Wilson?" he asked quietly. "Not completely," Reed admitted, "but we need to take some chances." Lynn joined them. "We'll reach Earth space in 3 days. Wilson has codes to bypass the quarantine blockade." "And then what?" Max asked. "March into military headquarters with our evidence." Reed shook his head. "Too risky. Admiral Jones has arranged a secret meeting with people she trusts. Government officials, military officers, scientists. People who can act on this information. If they believe us," Lynn said. "They'll believe this." Reed held up the data crystal. "Facts don't lie." Wilson entered the room. "Course set. We should." She stopped suddenly as the ship's alarm activated. "That's impossible. We're being tracked." Reed rushed to the scanner. A large military vessel was closing in fast. Earth ship. Heavy cruiser class. The communication system crackled. "Attention rogue vessel. This is Admiral Black of the Earth Defense Force. You are carrying fugitives and enemy combatants. Surrender immediately." Reed looked at Wilson, whose face had gone pale. "You led them to us." "No," she protested. "I swear, I don't know how they found us." The truth didn't matter now. What mattered was the evidence they carried. The key to saving humanity from extinction. Reed took the data crystal from his pocket and looked at it. So small, yet it held the fate of billions. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," he ordered. "Whatever happens, this evidence needs to reach Earth. Evasive maneuvers now." Reed shouted as Admiral Black's cruiser fired its first warning shot across their bow. Wilson jumped into the pilot's seat, her hands flying over the controls. The small ship lurched to the side as energy beams cut through the space they had occupied seconds before. "We can't outrun a military cruiser," Max said, gripping his seat as the ship shuddered. Lynn studied the star map. "There's an asteroid field 2 minutes away at maximum speed. We might lose them there." "Do it," Reed ordered. Wilson pushed the engines beyond safety limits. The ship groaned under the strain as they raced toward the asteroid field. Behind them, the cruiser followed, still firing. 30 seconds to asteroid field, Lynn announced. A direct hit rocked their ship. Warning lights flashed across the control panel. Shields down to 20%, Wilson reported. One more hit like that, and we're done. They reached the asteroid field just as another blast struck them. The engine sputtered, and the ship spun wildly between two massive space rocks. I've lost control. Wilson fought with the steering. Reed strapped himself in. Everyone braced for impact. Their ship scraped against an asteroid, sending them tumbling into the depths of the field. The cruiser, too big to follow, held position at the edge, continuing to fire blindly after them. When the spinning stopped, they found themselves hidden among the asteroids, their ship damaged but intact. Engines offline, Wilson said, checking the systems. Life support functioning. Communications dead. Reed looked out the viewport at the field of floating rocks that surrounded them. We're trapped. Better trapped than captured, Max replied, wincing as he adjusted his injured shoulder. Black would have executed us all. Lynn was already working on the communications panel. I might be able to send a narrow beam transmission. It won't reach Earth, but maybe we can contact someone closer. Reed nodded. Try to reach Admiral Jones. She's our only hope now. As Lynn worked, Reed pulled Wilson aside. How did Black find us? Wilson shook her head. I don't know. My ship was clean. I'm certain of it. Could Jones have betrayed us? No, Wilson said firmly. She risked everything sending me to find you. Someone else must have tracked us. Maybe the clinic doctor. Reed considered this. Possibly. But it doesn't matter now. What matters is getting this evidence to Earth. He held up the data crystal that contained proof of the conspiracy. So much depended on this small object. 3 days passed while they drifted in the asteroid field. Lynn had managed to repair basic systems, but the engines remained offline. Max's condition improved slowly, and he spent most of his time helping with repairs. Reed stood by the viewport, watching Admiral Black's cruiser. It remained at the edge of the asteroid field, patient as a predator. They know we can't leave, he said as Wilson joined him. Food and water will last another week if we're careful, she replied. But air recycling is struggling. A light flashed on the communications panel. Lynn rushed to it. Incoming transmission. Narrow beam. Encrypted. They gathered around as Lynn accepted the transmission. A familiar face appeared on the screen. Admiral Jones, Reed said with relief. The Admiral looked tired but determined. Captain Reed. Commander Wilson, good to see you alive. Reed quickly explained their situation and what they had discovered about the weapon and the conspiracy. Jones listened intently. This confirms our suspicions. Black isn't working alone. There's a network of traitors throughout Earth's government and military. Why would humans help alien empires destroy their own kind? Wilson asked. Power, safety, the usual reasons people betray their species, Jones answered bitterly. They believe they'll be spared when the weapon is deployed. We have all the evidence on this data crystal, Reed said, but we're trapped. Black's cruiser is waiting for us. Jones smiled slightly. Not for long. Help is coming. The transmission ended abruptly. Reed looked at the others. What did she mean by help? They got their answer 12 hours later when the asteroid field lit up with weapons fire. 3 ships had appeared and were attacking Black's cruiser. Earth ships, Wilson said, checking the scanner, but not military. They're civilian vessels with weapons attachments. The resistance, Lynn realized. There must be others fighting against the conspiracy. One of the ships broke away from the battle and headed into the asteroid field. It was smaller than Black's cruiser, able to navigate between the rocks. A new transmission came through. A man with gray hair and a scared face appeared on screen. Captain Reed, Professor Thomas, Earth Science Academy. Admiral Jones sent us. We're your rescue party. The battle had given them the distraction they needed. Professor Thomas's ship docked with theirs, and they transferred quickly. As they pulled away, they saw Black's cruiser engaged with the other two resistance ships. "Will your friends be okay?" Reed asked as they navigated out of the asteroid field. "They know the risks," Thomas replied grimly. "Their job was to keep Black busy while we got you out. They'll try to escape when they can." Thomas's ship was faster than their damaged vessel had been. They put distance between themselves and the battle quickly. "Where are we going?" Reed asked. "Earth is still under quarantine." "Not Earth," Thomas said. "Not yet. We're going to Haven." Haven turned out to be a small moon orbiting a gas giant in an unmarked system. As they approached, Reed saw dozens of ships of various designs in orbit and a sprawling settlement on the surface. "What is this place?" he asked as they landed. Thomas led them out of the ship. "The Resistance headquarters. People from all species who oppose the new Empire leaders and their plans." Reed looked around in amazement. Humans worked alongside aliens from all 6 empires. Buildings of mixed architectural styles housed laboratories, training facilities, and living quarters. "How many?" Reed asked. "Almost 5,000 now," Thomas answered. "More arrive every day as word spreads. Not everyone supports genocide, Captain. Even in the empires, there are those who stand for what's right." Admiral Jones was waiting for them in the main command center. She embraced Reed briefly, then turned to Lin with respect. "Professor Lin, your work on biogenetics was legendary before your exile. We're honored to have you join us." Lin's 4 eyes blinked in surprise. "You know who I am." "We've been gathering allies for months," Jones explained. "Your name was on our list of potential supporters, but we couldn't reach you after your exile." She turned to Max. "And you must be the smuggler who's been helping them. We can use someone with your skills." Max shrugged his good shoulder. "Not like I have anywhere else to go now." Jones led them to a large table where a holographic display showed the galaxy. Certain points glowed red. "These are confirmed locations of the weapon production facilities," she explained. "Based on your data crystal, we now know there are 12 sites, not just the one you infiltrated." Reed studied the map. "We need to destroy them all." "Impossible with our current forces," Thomas said. "But there might be another way." He brought up a new image, a complex-looking device. "This is a transmitter powerful enough to reach every corner of the galaxy. If we can broadcast the evidence you've collected, show all citizens of all empires what their leaders are planning, we might create enough internal pressure to stop this." "Where is this transmitter?" Lin asked. "The Central Communications Hub on Terra Station," Jones said, "the largest human outpost in space, and now controlled by Admiral Black's forces." Reed looked at the massive station on the display. Breaking into a research facility had nearly gotten them killed. Infiltrating a heavily guarded space station would be far more dangerous. But as he looked around at the diverse group gathered in the command center, humans and aliens working together despite their government's hatred, Reed felt something he hadn't felt since this ordeal began: hope. "Then that's where we'll go," he said. "We'll show everyone the truth, not just for humanity, but for all species who believe in peace." Jones nodded. "It won't be easy. Black will be expecting something like this." "Nothing worth fighting for is ever easy," Reed replied. "When do we start?" 2 weeks of intense planning had led to this moment. Reed stood on the bridge of the resistance ship New Dawn, looking at the massive structure of Terra Station through the viewport. The station was a marvel of human engineering, a spinning wheel of metal and lights that had once been a symbol of humanity's achievements in space. Now it was the headquarters of Admiral Black's forces and their alien allies. "Approaching docking clearance range," Wilson said from the pilot's seat. She wore the uniform of Black's security forces, a disguise they had obtained from a resistance spy. Reed turned to his team. Lin had altered her appearance with special makeup that made her blue skin look more purple, passing as a member of a different alien species that wasn't under quarantine. Max's shoulder had fully healed, and he was checking his modified blaster one last time. 5 other resistance members, 3 humans, and 2 aliens, completed the strike team. "Remember the plan," Reed said. "We have one shot at this. Wilson and I will use the security credentials to get us to level 7. From there, Lynn leads us to the communication hub. Max and Team 2 create the distraction in the East Quadrant. We broadcast the evidence, then get out fast." They all nodded. Reed could see the tension on their faces, but also determination. "Incoming transmission from Terra Station," Wilson reported. Reed straightened his stolen uniform. "Put it through." A stern-faced security officer appeared on screen. "Cargo vessel New Dawn. State your business." "Supply delivery for Section 12. Reed answered confidently. "Authorization code Tango 7 Delta 9. There was a pause as the officer checked the code, one that their spies had stolen just days before. "Code verified. Proceed to Docking Bay 14 for inspection." The screen went dark. Reed exhaled slowly. First hurdle cleared. Max grinned. "Told you those codes would work. My contact came through." The New Dawn docked smoothly. Reed and Wilson led the way off the ship, presenting their forged credentials to the inspection team. The rest of the team followed, disguised as cargo handlers. "Cargo manifest," demanded the lead inspector. Reed handed over a datapad. As the inspector reviewed it, Reed noticed security was even tighter than they had expected. Armed guards stood at every junction, and camera drones floated overhead. "Looks in order," the inspector finally said. "Proceed to Section 12, Level 3. They pushed their cargo containers through the corridors. Inside the containers were not supplies, but weapons and the equipment Lynn would need to access the communication system. In a maintenance corridor on Level 3, they stopped to regroup. "Security is heavy," Reed observed. "Something's going on." Lynn checked her scanner. "There's unusual activity in the main council chamber. Many high-ranking officials are gathered there." Reed's eyes widened. The weapon. They must be planning the final phase. "Then we'd better hurry," Max said. He and his team separated, heading toward the East Quadrant where they would create their distraction. Reed, Lynn, and Wilson continued toward the central lift that would take them to Level 7. They passed several security checkpoints, their stolen credentials working perfectly each time. "Almost too easy," Wilson whispered as they entered the lift. Reed nodded grimly. "Stay alert." When the lift doors opened on Level 7, they found themselves facing 4 armed guards. "Halt! This level is restricted," the lead guard said. Reed stepped forward. "Commander Voss, Special Security Detail. We have orders to check communication systems before the council session." The guard frowned. "I wasn't informed." A massive explosion rocked the station. Emergency alarms blared. "Max's distraction," Lynn whispered. In the confusion, Reed moved quickly. "Security breach in East Quadrant. We need to secure the communication hub now." The guards hesitated, then nodded. "Go ahead. We'll check the disturbance." As the guards rushed to the lift, Reed led his team down the corridor toward the communication hub. They encountered no one else. All security forces were responding to Max's distraction. Lynn worked quickly on the sealed door to the hub. Almost got it. There. The door slid open. Inside, 2 technicians looked up in surprise. Before they could react, Wilson stunned them with her weapon. 15 minutes until security protocols reset, Lynn said as she connected their data crystal to the main console. "I need time to override the broadcast controls." Reed nodded. "Wilson, guard the door. I'll help Lynn." The station shook with another explosion. Through the window, Reed could see security ships mobilizing. He hoped Max and his team would get out safely. Lynn's fingers flew over the controls. "The system is fighting me. Someone knows we're here." The main screen flickered, and a face appeared. Admiral Black. "Captain Reed," he said, his voice cold. "I've been expecting you." Reed tensed. "Black. Did you really think I wouldn't anticipate your plan? Your resistance friends gave us quite a show in the East Quadrant, but they're already captured. Reed's heart sank, but he kept his face neutral. It's over, Black. We have the evidence of what you and your alien allies are planning. Genocide. Treason against your own species. Black smiled thinly. Evidence that will never be broadcast. Security teams are already on their way to the communication hub. You've lost, Reed. Lynn had continued working while they talked. She looked up at Reed and nodded slightly. She was still making progress. Reed needed to keep Black distracted. Why, Black? Why betray humanity? Betray? Black laughed. I'm saving us, Reed. The strong and worthy, at least. Humanity is chaotic, divided. The new order will unite the galaxy under proper control. Those of us who cooperate will have a place in it. As slaves, Reed said bitterly. As survivors, Black countered. Which is more than I can say for you. The door alarm beeped. Wilson took up position. Security teams approaching. Lynn looked up. Just need 30 more seconds. Reed faced the screen. You're wrong about humanity, Black. We're not just survivors. We're fighters. And we don't abandon our principles, even when every empire closes its doors to us. Black's expression hardened. Noble words for a dead man. The door exploded inward. Wilson fired, holding back the first wave of security forces. Now, Lynn, Reed shouted. Lynn pressed the final command. Broadcast initiated. Galaxy-wide transmission beginning. The main screen split, Black's face on one side, and on the other, the evidence. Documents, video recordings, weapon schematics, all streaming to every ship, station, and planet in the galaxy. No, Black shouted. Reed stepped toward the camera. People of all species, what you're seeing is evidence of a conspiracy. Your leaders plan to eliminate humanity with a biological weapon, then use that same technology to control anyone who opposes them. This isn't about human survival anymore. It's about freedom for all beings. Security forces broke through Wilson's defense. She fell back, wounded but still fighting. Reed continued speaking as guards surrounded them. Choose carefully what kind of galaxy you want to live in. One ruled by fear and genocide, or one where different species can work together despite our differences. The guards hesitated, some of them watching the evidence unfolding on screens throughout the station. Lynn looked at her console. Broadcast complete. It can't be stopped now. Black's face contorted with rage. Arrest them. Kill them if you have to. But something unexpected happened. One of the guards lowered his weapon. Then another. A third stepped away from Reed's team. Sir, one guard said into his communicator, we're seeing the transmission. Is this true? Throughout the station, throughout the fleet, throughout the galaxy, people were asking the same question. And the evidence was unmistakable. The main door opened again. Admiral Jones entered, surrounded by council representatives from 3 of the 6 empires. Admiral Black, Jones said formally, by joint authority of Earth Command and the reformed Galactic Council, you are removed from duty and placed under arrest for crimes against sentient beings. Black's face on the screen showed shock, then fury. This isn't over. The transmission cut off. Reed looked at Jones in amazement. How? Your broadcast worked, she explained. 3 Empire representatives were already questioning the extremist actions of their new leaders. When they saw your evidence, they immediately called for an emergency council session. The other empires are in chaos as their citizens demand answers. Lynn stepped forward. What about the weapon? Production has been halted at all facilities, one of the alien representatives said. We have much to atone for, but genocide will not happen. Not today. Not ever. Reed felt exhaustion wash over him. It was over. They had won. 1 month later, Reed stood again in the Galactic Council chamber. The room was different now. Representatives from all species sat together, including humans. The quarantine had been lifted. The conspiracy had been exposed. The galaxy was changing. Captain James Reed announced the new council speaker, approached the center. Reed walked forward, still amazed to be here not as a fugitive, but as an honored guest. For extraordinary courage in the face of impossible odds, for bringing truth to light when darkness threatened to engulf us all, and for reminding us that our differences need not divide us, the Galactic Council presents you with the Order of Unity, the highest honor we can bestow. As the medal was placed around his neck, Reed saw Lynn and Max in the audience, smiling proudly. He thought about their journey, from outcast to resistance fighter to here. He had chosen to fight for humanity when every empire closed its doors, and in doing so, he had helped open those doors again, not just for his people, but for a new understanding among all species. "Thank you," Reed said simply, his voice carrying through the chamber. "But this honor belongs to everyone who stood for truth, human and alien alike. We've been given a rare second chance. Let's build something worthy of it." As applause filled the chamber, Reed knew the road ahead would not be easy. Trust would need to be rebuilt. Old hatreds would need to be overcome. But for the first time in too long, the future of the galaxy looked bright, and humanity would help shape it.